Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Let's go through the usual routine to start off with. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Everything look and sound all okay before we take a look at saying good evening to those lovely peeps that are in already. So if you could let me know in the chat section if you can hear me okay and everything looks and sounds fine to you, that would be absolutely awesome. In the meantime, I'm just going to have a little bit of a drink and take a little look at the comment section. So, hope you're all doing fine. Okay, let's have a little look. Sounds good. Sound and video, all good. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much, Doug. Just seen a pile of messages just popped up then to just let me know that everything is all working okay. So, thank you so much for doing that. I hope you're having a fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, day, wherever it is, wherever you are, what time it is. So, I just want to say today is a very good day, and I'll explain why in a minute once we've given a few more people a chance to get here, and then we'll go over why it's such a good day. But first of all, let's have a little look who's in this evening and just say a couple of hellos. So, Michael Wright, good evening to you. And we've got Paul Keating, always great to see you guys. Carl, as always, good to see you in, my young man. We've got Hola from Mexico, and this is, I can't even say that, Shrizo Oliveira. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, I do apologize, but good evening to Mexico. And let's have a little look. Who else have we got in? Doug Popejoy, good evening to you. Dwayne Oliver, again, good evening to you as well. Marco Castro, another good evening. Paul Keating, no beer. No, I'm still no beer. I'm still on the water. So, but it's doing its job. I've lost 7 pounds in the last just under 4 weeks. So I'm happy. Another 2 months like this and I can go back on the beer. Okay, so we've got Lillian. Good to see you in this evening. We've got No Reaction. Again, good evening to you as well. Someone from Israel. I can't actually understand that because it's just symbols to me on this side, so I do apologise. Anthony, good to see you as always. And Stratos Tutorials, good to see you in as well. Volker, my man, good to see you from Liverpool tonight, so I hope you're all doing well. Spark Graphics, Rahul, Dwayne, Rich Ward, Joy Elvin. Good evening, Els. It's good to see you in as always. Nice to see you in here. And we've got IT Ticheka. Again, apology if I butchered that, but hello, Serbia. I hope you're doing well. Oh, thank you very much, Carl. You're a gentleman. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's just getting fitter, getting that little bit of lockdown chub off. I don't like it, and it's got to go. I've got to go back to where it was before, which is nowhere near me. And Charles Duplessis, greetings from South Africa, and greetings South Africa to you too. You drive health. Hi, Paul. It's Martin from Sandbach. Good evening, Martin. I hope you're doing well. And we've got Ophir. So, thankfully, I can see what that is now. So that's really good to see. Okay, so I'd like to first of all say I hope you've had a great week. It's been pretty full-on hectic here since forever, really. So I hope you're in the same position, especially if you are freelancing, if you're doing this as a business. I hope things are going well, because a lot of the things that I'm seeing online, different people saying, you know, the start of this year has been really, really good for them. Lots of business coming in. And I can imagine with the current state of affairs health-wise around the world, a lot of businesses are looking for that ability to move online or to increase their online presence. So I hope you're benefiting from what is technically a horrible situation, but hopefully you're helping those businesses create something that's more sustainable and helping them sustain themselves through a very, very difficult time the world over. Anyway, like I say, I hope that is what's happening with you guys. How about low-calorie beer? Is there such a thing? To me, that would probably be like, well, it's not so much. Let me just explain first of all what I'm doing. It's not so much diet. It's more cutting out excess sugar, and the difference it makes to you is ridiculous. I read a little bit about how that makes a difference to, how you focus, how you concentrate, your health, your energy levels, your memory, all those kinds of things. And I just kind of thought, yeah, whatever. But since I've been doing this since, I think it's the 2nd of January, something like that, I've got to say, whatever they're saying about it does actually work. You really do feel I'm much more focused. I'm creating longer form content. I'm excited to get in and create content, which was something that I was struggling with towards the end of 2020 for various different reasons, but I think I'd have to attribute part of it to that side of things. So if you've never tried cutting sugar out of your diet, or I should say added sugar, because it's virtually impossible to cut sugar out of your diet unless you just eat meat and vegetables that you grow yourself. But if you've never tried it and you've thought about it and you think you don't know what the benefits are, I would generally say it's worth doing. Just make sure you do it properly, and if you have any problems, you consult a doctor or health nutritionist kind of thing. Anyway, that's my thing out of the way. Good evening, Rich. Good to see you. And Charlie Bird, good to see you in the house tonight. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. So the first thing I want to talk about before we talk about who's sponsoring tonight's episode is something that happened earlier on today, which for me, I'm super, super chuffed about. And that is, let me just pull this up on screen for you a second. That is that we reached the heady heights of 90,000 subscribers. So 10 more thousand to go and we hit the 100k, which is the goal for me anyway, very soon. But I just want to say a big thank you to every single one of you that's in here tonight, every one of you that subscribes to the channel, every one of you that have said to other people to subscribe to the channel. It's your efforts that's making the live streams, making the channel, the videos, and all those kinds of things be more and more successful. So I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to every single one of you, everybody that's just become part of the WP crew, the whole family, and you know how I feel about the whole WP crew Facebook group and those kinds of things. I'm super chuffed about what a friendly place that is, what an open, respectful place it is. We can all talk about different things, we can share experiences, we can share a virtual beer or a virtual bottle of water, and I just got to say thank you to every one of you that's here tonight, and like I say, everyone that's watching this in the replay, big thank you. I just cannot believe how amazing that figure is. When I think it wasn't that long ago, I was talking about hitting 500. So massive thank you to every single one of you. It's an amazing place to be, and you make it the community that it is. So I gotta just give it to you guys. Thank you very much. Okay, blend ginger, lemon, and honey. It's great instead of sweets. Ooh. Okay, I might give that a try. Okay, so that's the sort of first thank you thing that I wanted to say tonight. And like I say, it means a lot to me that you are all part of it. The second thing I want to talk about, which is kind of what the topic of tonight's going to be about, and I've also been asked about something else that I will touch upon. I won't go into huge amounts of detail because I'm not a legal expert. I'm only going to be able to speak from my personal experience, and that's to do with how you form a business in the UK, but I would imagine it's very similar in other countries as well. So I want to sort of just cover those kinds of things. So the first thing we're going to cover tonight is relationships, and why are they more important than building an actual website. And this might kind of sound like a bit of a strange topic to sort of bring up, but I've always been a great believer, and I think it's something that's stood in good stead for me over the last 15 or so years where I've been in business in various different guises, is that you don't build a website, you build a relationship. You don't build a cabinet, you don't build, anything that you can create for someone. If you just look at it as being, once the website is done, it's thanks for the money and bye-bye, and I'll send you an invoice next year, and that's it, I think if you go down that route, it makes it more difficult to build a long-term sustainable business, because you're sacrificing the relationship and the goodwill that comes with a relationship for the check at the end of the project. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on this. If you focus on building a good experience with the people that come on board as clients, and we all know this is never going to happen with every single client, but I think if you go in with the mindset of you want to build that relationship because you want to create a long-term situation where that client feels comfortable coming to you, comfortable recommending you, knowing that you are going to do a good job for the person or people they recommend you to, all those things. For me, the relationship is the key. The product or the service that you actually provide to them is, to a certain extent, secondary. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your experiences? Do you build relationships? Do you focus on that side of things? Or do you kind of think, once the job is done, unless they come back to me for something, that's the end of that relationship? Let me know, because I think it's an interesting kind of concept, and I would love to know how you operate when it comes to that. I know my thoughts on it. So tell me in the chat section how you feel about it. And if you don't do it right now, would you consider changing your approach with maybe the next couple of clients to test that out? It's not a short-term thing. It's not something you can just do today and then that's it. It is something that's a longer term, and you might not see the benefits straight away, but as your client base grows and your longer term clients stay on board with you, you'll see those relationships develop. And if you nurture them in the right way, you will ultimately make more money, and especially from the clients that are happy that you help and support, but also in them recommending you and openly recommending you to other businesses, to friends, to family members, to anywhere they want to sort of spread the word. A happy client will always be really forthcoming in saying where they got their website built, or where they went to when they had a bad experience with the previous web designer, all those kinds of things. So let me know what your thoughts are, and if you do concentrate, whether you consciously think about it or whether it's a subconscious thing, if you concentrate on developing that relationship, let me know in the chat, because I'd love to know. Okay, so what comments do we have other than the amazing congratulations, which, thank you very much, you're all awesome. Okay, thanks for remembering LTD versus Sole Trader. No problem at all. I will be taking a look at that. Now, I'm going to say Izok. I know that's not your name. That's probably just your online persona. But yeah, I'll be taking a look at that as we go through. So I've got that noted down for the second part of this before we go to the Q&A. So just know that I will come to that and we'll have a little discussion about it. Okay. Paul Keating, there we go. I think a long-term relationship is very important. I agree. And again, other than just telling me if you kind of work like this now, or if it's something you would consider taking on board, if you do work like this, tell me how you benefited from it, what experiences you've had of building that relationship, and how you've reaped those rewards, whether early on in that business client relationship or medium long term, and what kind of benefits you got from it. Did you have more clients through recommendation? Did you have more projects with the same client because they were so happy with what you provided them? Let me know what your experiences have been, as well as, like I say, if you do this right now or if you are going to consider doing it in the future. Okay, what else do we have? Michael, full-on relationship, but the results start to count more then as well. Yeah, this is the nice thing about it. If you develop relationships with clients, they are definitely going to be coming to you with more ideas. And I think let's just take a step back and not look at when the client needs something, they come to you. Let's take a look at it from a different point of view. Let's say you were browsing AppSumo, as an example, and you come across a lifetime deal that you think that would be awesome for client X. Would you then tell that client and say, look, this is an offer, get the LTD, or obviously if you wanted to make a markup on it, you could do, or maybe even you think this would be a good resource for the client, but you would run that resource. Would you feel comfortable going to your clients? Because I think when you have a good relationship with the client, they're not seeing as you trying to sell them all the time. They start to understand that you have their interests at heart. So when you do go to them with an idea about, something you do on their website, a way of getting potentially more traffic, of making more sales, converting more leads, or solutions that would improve their business in some respect, they're going to be so much more open and accepting of the fact that you're doing it for the right reasons. And I've had a client in the past, unfortunately, they sort of like retired, the business is closed, but I probably worked with them for maybe 13, 14 years, maybe even longer than that. And it was a van sales company. So they were a dealership, they sold vans. I'd work with them probably 3 or 4 times. And the crazy thing about that relationship was when I was teaching like web design and those kinds of things. I had a student that were friends, 2 ladies. They came to the course. They came to a couple of my courses. And so they were lovely people. And we was out one day shopping, just happened to bump into her, and she was with her husband, and stopped and said, "Oh, Paul, this is my husband, so-and-so. And we've been talking about a website, and we just thought, well, we want to have a chat to you to see if this is something that you would do." And at the time, I was doing a couple of little sort of sideline projects alongside teaching. And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's arrange a meeting. They were in the same town as me. So popped down there like the next week and had a meeting with them, built the website, the first iteration of the website. Within a couple of months, their parts department wanted a website, so they came to me. They wanted business cards, and they wanted to have the business cards rebranded that kind of tied into what I'd done with the website. So I designed those, created business cards, then I had the business cards printed for 5 or 6 different individuals and departments and so on. And then 2 years, 3 years down the line, I'd pop in from time to time and sit down and have a chat, and we talk about different things, sort of shoot the breeze kind of thing. And then when the website kind of was doing well, I say, okay, well, how can we make that better? I've got a couple of ideas. If you've got half an hour, let's sit down and have a chat, chuck some ideas out there. No pressure. If you think, actually, that sounds cool, Paul, well, let's have a chat about it. Give me some prices. If not, doesn't matter. And I would say probably 70% of the time they took the ideas on board and we ran with it and we did more things. I think I did 3 websites for them. They outsourced the SEO to a company. They weren't happy with it. Again, we had a chat about all those kinds of things, and I gave them some advice on how to deal with certain things and what to ask from the company and so on. So these things didn't, sort of make me money, but they came to me because they understood that I knew what I was talking about. I had understanding of the industry. I had their business interest at heart, and I wasn't going to try to screw them over for a short-term fix. So they say that relationship was probably maybe 13, 15, 16 years. It was a long-term relationship until they actually, all retired, and it was a family business, all retired and closed the business down. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with why those relationships are so important, from a small seed of one family member talking about the fact that I did this kind of thing, then an impromptu meeting that went on to a long-term relationship that made me thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, but not at the expense of screwing over that relationship. And I think this is where the key and the most important thing comes into it, and why I think relationships are so important. So that's one of my experiences anyway. So I'm going to come back into the chat now, take a look at some of yours, and then we're going to quickly talk about tonight's sponsor for about 30 seconds. Okay, so what else do we have? Let's have a look. Spark Graphics. Let's have a look what you're going to be saying. I definitely go into every project with that mindset. It's such an important part of the process. I've seen many people and businesses not put enough focus on it. And I think those are the businesses that are always looking for new clients. And that's the difficult thing. And in tough times, it's much easier to go back to existing clients, talk to them, find out what their pain points are, offer some advice, maybe even come up with some solutions. I mean, I've offered what's currently happening in the world. Excuse me. One of the things that I also do as part of my business is I will work with creatives and create video content for them. Go in, set things up, shoot the entire thing, edit it, upload it to the YouTube channel, manage the YouTube channel, those kinds of things. So this was a business that wasn't doing that. They'd expressed an interest in it through conversations we'd had, and offered to sort of say, well, look, how about we get this going? Because obviously your business has had to, the shop and everything has had to close down. The education side of it, the training side of it, they couldn't do that because it was face-to-face training. And talked about different bits and pieces and said, look, if times are tight, which obviously they are, I'm more than happy to defer payment for doing this until you start to see some revenue return from what we're doing here, or things get back to some kind of normality and you can open the business up. Now, I didn't need to do that, and I'm not saying you should have to do it, but I think when you have that relationship, you will find these clients that you will go above and beyond to help their business not just grow, but in times where things are difficult, just continue to exist. And I think that's important. And I think if you build that relationship, this is where you'll start to reap those rewards long term. Because they don't, we don't forget those things. We don't forget when people do us a good service, a good turn. So, this is why relationships, I think, are so important. Okay, before I read any more comments, I just want to quickly do tonight's sponsor, because we are now sponsored every week for at least the next 8 weeks after this, I think it is, with 2 of my key companies that I work with. So tonight's sponsorship is all done through Crockleblock. And as you know, I create content for Crockleblock. I also create content about Crockleblock. They're dynamic tools like Jet Engine, Jet Smart Filters, those kinds of things. And if you haven't seen it, I released a video earlier on this week about the free forms plugin, which I think is an absolute game changer for a lot of cases, because it is incredibly powerful, it's totally free, and there is something extra coming to that that'll help you get even more out of that plugin, but I don't want to say anything about it just yet. So if you haven't, or you're interested in taking a look at CrocodBlock, you can visit crocodblock.com, take a look there, and have a little nose at some of the tools they've got, because if you want to get more from WordPress, CrocodBlock is definitely a place to look at. So thank you very much for sponsoring tonight's video, as always, and now we've done that, let's crack on with what we're talking about. Okay, so let's go back to some of these wonderful comments. Let's have a look. Richard, services are always about the relationship, but some clients just want the job done and move on. Of course they do. You know, this is one of those things that they're the type of client that's your turnover client. That's the one that just basically fills in the gaps, I think, between your longer term relationships. And you can't build a relationship with every client that you work with. But if you go in with the mindset of doing it, it's easier then to create that relationship when the opportunity arises. And the ones that don't have any interest in that, then don't worry about it. Do the job, do it to the best of your ability. Deliver a great service, a great product, professional. And then once that's done and they've paid you, if they have nothing more to do with you because you've done the job and they host it somewhere else and they want to do the maintenance side of things themselves, then all power to them. But you will still find that, you know, depending upon the size of businesses that you're talking about working with, you will still find there's going to be businesses and individuals that you work with that you do create those relationships, and they're the ones you just nurture as they become available to you. So, good comment, Rich. You are right. Paul, most customers I had 10 years ago are still with me and recommend me today. And this is the thing, you cannot underestimate how important that actually is. You know, you're doing something right when they stay with you for that longer period of time and they still recommend your services to other people, other businesses that are looking for the services that you provide. So good on you. I'm glad to hear that. Michael, absolutely. Most of my new work comes from recommendations from existing clients. And again, it's if you get someone that recommends you and then they contact you based upon that recommendation, that lead is already a warm lead as opposed to a cold lead. So the sales process, the pitch that you're going to do, unless of course you are way off the mark for the budget that they've got, there's a good chance you'll win that client because it's already been qualified by a happy customer that they've got a relationship with and they've come to you because of that recommendation. So there's just constant benefits from building that relationship. So Michael, you are absolutely right on that one. I'm a freelancer. Customers offer such a small budget they can hurt and humiliate us. Totally. I mean, this is one of those areas that's really, really difficult because I think every country, even areas within a country, can have such disparity between the amounts of money that you can command for web design that it's really difficult. But the one thing that I've always, not so much always, but the one thing that very quickly I learned was to look out for the red flags that certain prospects will exhibit. So what I mean by that is you can tell from the first email, from the first phone call, from the first face-to-face meeting, whatever it is, how much of a good client this potential, this prospect is going to be. And by that I mean there are certain things that you notice. If you get people that haggle, generally they're not the kind of client that you want because they're already trying to knock you down on your price. And you know that that's going to be a mentality that's going to go through the entire project. It's very rare they will change that mentality. If you get people that are late sending you content, you know, those are red flags because you know that's going to be a bit of a pain all the way through the project. So when it comes to the money side of things, you know, it's a difficult one. You've got to look at how you can improve your prospective client and therefore charge more. I mean, you can't put prices up overnight. It's impossible for most cases to go from, let's just say you charge £1,000 for a website to £2,500 for exactly the same website in the space of a couple of days. But over a period of time, then these are things that, you know, realistically you should be looking to try to implement into your business. So excuse me drinking tonight. I've got a bit of a sore throat. Okay. Let's have a little look. Carl. Whilst my main business is in the game server hosting industry, I design and code all sites, I would have to agree I have clients still hosting with me after 3 years, even after offers, better offers they get. Yeah, to talk about hosting, And I'm coming from the other side of the fence now. I've said several times where people have asked me, who do I host with? My main host for my business, and that's in my web design business that I've had, like I say, for about 15 years, is a UK company called Klook, and I've got no affiliation with them, but they've been a fantastic company. Their tech support, their help, all those kinds of things have been top notch. And I've got no reason or any desire at this point in time, and touch wood that doesn't change, to move my business elsewhere. And I currently host probably about 85 sites on there. A couple of my own, but most of them are client sites with varying degrees of traffic. Some that are like an artist site that might get a couple of hundred, or say a couple of thousand views a month, up to ones that are dealing with festivals and things like that, which could be getting tens of thousands of visits a month, if not more. And I wouldn't move anywhere else unless there was a problem. So I would generally say that even if you're a hosting company coming on another side, if you provide a good service with good technical support and all those kinds of things, most people are not going to move on from you, because it's more hassle to move than it is to stay. So these are the things that it's always worth looking at. Okay. Let's have a little look at Steve. What are you saying? Always keep in touch with clients just as courtesy, if for no other reason. Send Christmas cards, etc. May get a little bit more business, which has happened. Yeah, I mean, little things like sending cards, popping in, those kinds of things. It just keeps you in their mind. They might not be thinking, oh, I need to have something done on my website, or they might be thinking and forget about it. But when you drop a Christmas card in, pop in, whatever it is, that can be the impetus that reminds them they need something, and say, oh, while you're here, I was going to give you a call about something. So it can result in leading to more business. So that's always interesting. Okay, let's have a little look. What else do we have? We have lots of comments tonight, so thank you very much for commenting. Great to see. Let's have a look. What else? I really like the explanation. I'm actually doing that, but now it clicks. Thanks. I don't know if that was towards me, Michael, or whether it's towards someone else. But yeah, so I think relationships, a big key part of your ongoing business side of things. Again, lots of buffering. I do apologise if we are getting buffering. That's kind of strange. I think what I probably need to do is try to connect this up to hardwire as opposed to going Wi-Fi. So I'll try and remember to do that next week. So I do apologise if we are buffering tonight. My apologies. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that was asked on the Facebook group, which incidentally, if you haven't joined the Facebook group, there's the link to it, wptuts.co.uk/Facebook. Become part of the WP crew. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm going to make sure I got the right button now, is, I believe, nope, wasn't that one. Nope, wasn't that one. Technical. What we're going to say. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay. Woohoo! Technical problems. I think I missed a slide out, so I do apologise. One of the questions I got asked on the WP Crew Facebook group was about setting up a UK-based business to do with limited company, to do with sole traders and those kinds of things. So I don't want to go too much into this, and I'm only going to speak from personal experience. And like I say, this is probably more UK specific, but could still be, to other parts of the world, because I'm sure you've got like in America, you've got your limited companies and things. But this is from a freelancer's point of view or a sole trader's point of view. Do you need to be a limited company? The honest answer that I would say to that is no, you don't need to be a limited company, because one of the main benefits of being a limited company, if you're a one-man band, your typical freelancer kind of thing, is if you open yourself up to potential risk. So let's just say, for example, that you wanted to work with a company and they wanted a pile of print work, and that print work ended up being like £10,000, $10,000, and they were on 30-day credit terms, and something happened and you didn't get paid, then being a sole trader or a freelancer or anything like that, that company could come after you and take your assets. Whereas being a limited company, the company is an entity and you are employed by the company, even if you are the only person in the company. So if something like that happened, the liability generally, and there's going to be different cases where this isn't true, but generally it means that they would have to go after the company's assets and not your personal assets. So let's just say, let's expand that to being, if you had a 30-day terms on £150,000 worth of work of some variety, then they could come after you and after your house and all your property and your vehicle and all those kinds of things if you are a sole trader or a freelancer. Whereas a limited company, unless you've put your assets into the business, they couldn't come after that. That's basically one of the main benefits of being a limited company. But if you don't open yourself up to those risks, there's a lot less reason to be a limited company, because when you're a sole trader or a freelancer, you have one set of accounts that you have to submit, and they don't have to be public. So you submit those to the HMRC or whatever tax body you have in your country. But if you are a limited company, you have to have your returns have to be submitted in a different way. There's more cost to it generally through your accountant. You have to make those publicly available through, in the UK, what's called Companies House, which is where all limited companies and things like that have their details, their information about their directors, their turnover, those kinds of things. So to cut a long story short, if you don't really open yourself up to financial risk, there's not really a lot of benefits to becoming a limited company in the UK. If you do open yourself up to those risks and you want to protect yourself as much as possible, a limited company could be the better way of going about it. Again, this is the UK. So I hope that answers the questions about the whole business setup between becoming a sole trader, a limited company, and those kinds of things. Like I say, there's probably going to be slightly differences in different countries, but I think the principle holds true in a lot of countries to do with how a limited company, like a public limited company, all those kinds of things, it's to reduce personal liability predominantly. So I hope that at least helps a little bit in answering that question. But if you want to know more, again, just post that back onto the Facebook group, onto the WP Crew Facebook group, link by there, and I'll see if I can give you some more help or answer any other questions you may have with it. But like I say, don't take this as legal advice, because I am not an expert in this. I'm not in finances or any of those kinds of things. This is just my experience of working with limited companies. Okay. Keeping that going, downside to UK Limited and VAT, you end up giving up a total of 45% turnover to Companies House and Taxman. Do yourself a favour and visit Dubai and be very, very warm. Yeah, there's lots of different things. There's benefits to it, there's pros and cons. You just need to look into it for your specific situation. And if you think the extra cost and the extra hassle that you have as being a limited company is worthwhile compared to being a sole trader or a freelancer, whatever you want to kind of do. Or a partnership. If there's two of you, you can have partnerships. You don't have to become a limited company if there's more than one person as part of the business. You could be partners and so on. So there's lots of ways. Just look at what you think is the best option for your given circumstances. Okay, let's have a little look. Esther, good evening to you. It helps to have some really good contracts in place. Oh, definitely. Always have a good contract in place. And we've talked about contracts and stuff in the past. And my take on contracts when it comes to a good contract is not trying to lock your client down to only what they can have. It's to give them the freedom to have as much scope as they want, but to know that once it goes outside what you've quoted for and they've paid for or paid a deposit for, they are billable as separate things in their own right. Once you kind of make that clear, then the client can keep on changing and adding more to their website as much as they want, just so long as they know that that incurs additional costs. And I took my contract from about 12 pages down to about 3, and most people don't get terrified by seeing it, whereas they did with all the legal junk that was in the first one. So yeah, good contract is always really, really useful. Okay, so what do we have? I just seen something about liability and something like that. Okay, does anyone as a freelancer, etc., take out public liability insurance? Now, again, don't take this as being 100% accurate, because this is my interpretation of this side of things. Public liability, excuse me, is only really applicable if you have clients come to your premises. if that's your home or it's your home office or something like that, if they come into your house, you want to take out public liability, because once the public comes into your place of work, whether that's, like I say, your home, wherever you kind of work, you really want to have public liability. If you don't have clients come into your house, your home, your business, whatever, you always go to meet them, or you meet in a neutral place, you should generally not need public liability insurance. Double check that. I could be talking through my bum, but generally the whole point is to reduce or remove your liability if something happens to a member of the public while on your premises. Like I say, that could be your house, it could be your home office, it could be a garden shed you've set up as an office. If they can come into it, the public can come in, then you can be liable for something that happens to them. Okay, so hope that helps. Rich, what do we have? There's an element of status with your clients if they know you're a real company rather than some chap coding in your back bedroom. I would have said I agreed with that to a point. I think, especially now with what's happened over the best part of the last year in the UK at least, and longer in some other parts of the world, is more people now operate from their home office or their home, and I think that's increased the credibility of people that work from home. I was kind of worried going from having a business premises for 11 years where clients would come to see me, to moving the business home, becoming a freelancer, and no longer having clients come to see me, but me going to see them, excuse me, or meeting in a mutually agreed place. And I see no difference in it whatsoever. So I would say, I think the stigma used to be there years ago, and I think if you're sideline hustling, yes, you could have that stigma attached to it because it's not your job. But I think more people are kind of used to, more businesses, more people are used to that freelance aspect where you can operate from a home office and you can have that sort of like, you could have a nomadic kind of lifestyle. So I would say years ago, I would agree. Now, not so much so. And especially in the last 12 months, I think that's going to go by the by over the next 6 to 12 months. I think people's perception of people working from their home office is going to change dramatically if it hasn't already in a lot of cases. Okay, let's have a little look. What else do we have? Let's have a look. Good evening, Bucharest. Edward, good to see you. Joy, do you have business outside UK, and have you changed if so? I've had business with I've got to look at it in sort of two parts, because my business is no longer web design solely. That's just now become, that's gone from being 80% of my business when I started doing YouTube and 20% YouTube to being 20% of my business and 80% of it is YouTube. So from the web design point of view, from that business, I've dealt with companies like in Dubai and stuff like that. So I've dealt with companies outside of the UK. Not very often, but I have dealt with companies outside of the UK. And that was fine. To be honest, there was no real difficulty with it. Since I've started doing YouTube, probably 95% of my client base is now outside of the UK. So I'm dealing with India, America, Germany, France, Italy, you name it, Romania. All over the world I'm dealing with companies in various different capacities. So now more of my business, if not 90% of my business, is probably all from outside of the UK. And some people would say there's been challenges with that side of things. I think it depends upon what you do for a business. There probably can be. Thankfully for me, it hasn't been an issue because, you know, the YouTube side of things is all about, it's online, it's visual, you can see it, you know, those kinds of things. People can see exactly what type of thing they're going to get. People know what to expect from working with me to a certain extent. So no, I've had no real problems working with other countries. Like I say, most of my business now is all outside of the UK. Hope that answers your question anyway. Okay, let's have a look. Andy, I see you're answering someone else, but I'm going to have a little look. Richard, Raid, credibility from knowledge demonstrated and online proof far outweigh bricks and mortar. Like Paul, I ran a company for 12 years, then became a freelancer. Exactly, Andy. I think that stigma is going to go. I mean, I know my partner, she comes from a corporate background, and pretty much as soon as lockdown came into effect, the sort of middle towards the end of March 2020, almost everybody from her company started operating from home. So everything was brought home, other than like one or two departments which couldn't work from home, which were like lab based. And say 6 months into her working from home, there was a sort of memo, an email went round saying like, how often would you be comfortable coming back into the office if, when this kind of gets beyond what it is right now? And obviously you went back with a different sort of answer to that kind of thing, once, maybe twice a week. But as that's gone on, they've already said, like in December, the chances of going back in 2021, probably not going to happen. And I would very, very much doubt that it would be a case of all those people going back in. I think it would be more a case of hot desks, cut the amount of people that would be in the building at any one time, maybe even combine the two buildings into one to cut down overheads. And they've proven, the technology's been proven inside that company and also in lots of other companies the world over, that their IT departments can cope with remote work. And I think that's going to change the whole working landscape, especially in the UK. I can't say for every country, but I think the working landscape has now changed totally. And I really don't see a lot of businesses ever having a full-time brick and mortar business location, or the need for a lot of businesses to have that. So I think, like I said earlier on, Rich, I think Andy was right. I think we've changed perception of freelancing and working from home, and I think that's going to get more so. Right. So, to keep on the business side of things, Pablo, good to see you again. Good to see you too. Do you offer monthly support, hosting, updates, security, etc. to your clients? I think here's a real cash flow business. I don't do... Well, let me just clarify how I work it. Excuse me. I've got a couple of things. I do... Hosting is done annually. I don't want the monthly invoicing headache. You can imagine with, let's just say, 80 clients and 80 invoices going out 12 times a year and keeping track of all those. I just can't be dealing with that side of things. So hosting is always done annually. Domain registrations, I deal with those, so that's either annually or every 2 years. Maintenance, I don't do monthly maintenance plans, and not because I think there's anything wrong with them. I think they're a great way of having a recurring revenue stream, and I think if I probably set my business up like that earlier on, I probably would do it that way. But my client work is now probably less on that aspect, and I say more on the YouTube side of things, so I've got less of a need for that side of things. But I've got annual contracts for software updates. I've got basically free-flowing maintenance contracts which allow them to content updates, tweaks to the design, adding new content pages and things like that. They have a block of my time that they get for a reduced rate that they buy in bulk, either like 6 hours or 12 hours. And then they can use those over a 12-month period however they want to. So 1 month they could use 3 hours of my time, then I might not hear from them for the next 3 months, and then I might have half an hour of my time, and they can use it on an ad hoc basis. At the end of that 12 months, it doesn't roll over, so whatever they don't use, they lose. If they want to use it quicker, they can do that. So what they're doing is they're saving themselves money with flexibility, as and when they need me. And that way, you get some clients that will pay you that money annually, and they'll use you for an hour, but they'll pay you for 12. And then you get some clients that will pay you for 12 hours, for example, and they'll use that in a month. But they've already saved money, and so there's lots of ways in which you can do it, and you can mix and match between annual, 2 years, monthly, free flowing, whatever you kind of want to do it. And you might find some clients really want that monthly support mechanism, other ones just as and when they need it, and then other clients which don't have any use for it whatsoever. So those ongoing kinds of things, I think there's various different ways you can structure it, and structure it the best way that works for you. And don't think that what you do today is going to be what you have to do in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. Test it. If it doesn't work, change it. If it does work, repeat it. That's the way I would look at doing it. So hopefully that's answered your question anyway. Excuse me. What else do we got? Let's have a little look. Paul, how do you protect yourself in terms of hosting, i.e. the service goes down and costs your clients revenue? Any thoughts? Yep, I put in my contract that says I am not responsible for downtime provided by the hosting company, and I cannot be basically sued for it, charged for it, or anything else like that. They're using me as a middle person. I'm not responsible for it. And if they want to go somewhere else, they're more entitled to do it. They sign that as part of the contract, which means that if anything like this happens, they contractually understand that it says it's not my responsibility. These things can happen, and there's no such thing as 100% uptime. And if you think there is, and any company says that that is the case, they're talking rubbish. So that's how I tend to deal with it. So hopefully that will answer that question. Okay. Esther, do I ever work with a copywriter? I end up doing a site myself, but it's a big job, especially the SEO part. Should I contract one myself or refer them? A partner would be best. I have worked with a copywriter in the past, several times. In fact, 2 copywriters. One that I liked working with, one that I wasn't overly fussed with, but that was a relationship that was out of my control. If you have this as a ongoing service and you market it as part of your website packages, your services you offer on your website and things like that, it could be good to partner up with a copywriter and maybe an SEO specialist or a copywriter that's good at both copywriting and copywriting for SEO. However, if it's something that's quite sporadic, I would say you'd be better off quoting, getting a quote for what would be needed, based upon the client's brief. And then you can either put that in at the same price with no markup, or if the price is good, then you could put a markup on it, a percentage markup. Maybe even have a chat to the copywriter and say, look, I want to build a relationship. Up at this point in time, I don't really have that many clients that are looking for copywriting, but how would you like to have a ad hoc relationship? And how about you give me your services at a slightly reduced rate, and I pass the client over to you, put a contract in place or some agreement in place that says they can't poach them. And that way you could potentially cream a little bit off what they would normally charge. There's lots of ways in which you could do it. But like I say, partner up if you've got someone that you trust, and I say partner, I don't mean like a business partner, you know what I mean. But only if you have a lot of call for it. Otherwise, you could be making a bit of a rod for your own back with that side of things. That's how I would approach it personally. So again, I hope that's helped and answers the question. Okay, so we're going to have one more thing I want to quickly talk about to get your feedback on. But first of all, let me just say thank you very much for some of the great questions. We'll do some more Q&A after this section, and I'll answer some more of your questions if I can. But the last thing I want to kind of talk about tonight is, you can't help but notice Elementor 3.1 has just been released. What has been your experience with it if you've updated? Have you tested out any of these key new features? And if you haven't tested it out, what's holding you back from trying it? Let me know in the chat. So, 3.1. Let me just give my take on the non-technical aspects of it. There's been a bit of a thing about the landing pages. You've now got a landing page feature. There's a new section in the templates for landing pages. To me, it just looks like it's just a group of templates that they're just standard templates. They've been obviously the designs there for landing pages, but the reality is it's not a new feature. It's just been categorized as landing pages, and there's been a menu entry put into the Elementor template section. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, are you excited what it's bringing with these new experimental features? The things that you can try to see if it's going to speed up WordPress and Elementor, if it's going to give you access to like the landing pages and things like that. Would you use these features? What's your thoughts? Your experience if you've tried it out, and if you haven't, what are you holding off for? So again, let me know. Thank you, Charlie. I would say I would always hold off and never install 3 point something. I would wait for like 3.12 or 3 or 4 or 5 or something like that. That's my experience anyway. I'm scared to install Elementor 3.1 because of all the issues from the previous releases, and I think that's the overarching theme that I think I'm seeing from. Once you erode the trust in your product, I know a lot of people are sort of saying like it's not Elementor's fault, it's the third-party companies that are not listening to the beta releases and getting themselves ready for that release. And that's fair enough. But I think you also have to take a certain level of responsibility when you're putting a product out there. But I think, as I've said in the past, especially with 3.0's experience and a lot of people's experience with 3.0, is never install the first version. Because I know that sort of the thing that always gets thrown around in the Facebook groups and that is, oh, you should always do a staging site. Never install it on a live site. And that's fine when you've got 3 or 4 sites. You can't afford the time to install and test things and go through all those things on a staging site. But when you've got 100 sites, 200 sites, 1,000 sites, which some agencies are going to have this kind of number, you can't do that on every single site. So this is where you have to put a certain level of faith in rolling these out. Always have a backup. Always use a tool like Main WP or Manage WP so you can push those backups out as quick as possible if something inevitably happens. But I'm seeing a lot of people losing faith in these updates and being scared to update their sites and their client sites. And that's a worrying trend that I think needs to be addressed. But to answer the question, no, I have not installed 3.1 on any live sites. I think I've only actually installed it on one sample site anyway, and that went fine. So, we just need to be careful. And like I say, if you can do staging sites, if you've only got a handful of sites, please do a staging site. But if you have a lot of sites with a lot of different combinations, which is what's going to happen for most businesses, I would have thought, please make sure you've got something like Main WP, Manage WP, or you're using some form of backup prior to running any of these updates so you can roll it back in minutes if something goes wrong. That's kind of where I am with it. So anyway, I'm going to have a look at your comments now and see what you think. Okay, let's have a little look. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to come back, Volker, to ask your question about Blocksy and Elementor in a little bit, but I'll come back to that. If I don't, remind me to come back to it. Okay, I gave it a try and saw no speed improvements, but not huge issues, except for then I turned on one of the experimental features. Yeah, you're in dangerous territory, I think, if you start to hit the button on the experimental features. But good to hear that you didn't see any issues. That's always good to know. Again, I think there's a lot of talk about the improvements that they're making to make it faster. I know when I tested 3.0 out, I didn't really see much difference. Nothing that would be that important, that mind-blowing anyway. So, I think they'd have to do something quite drastic to get a speed improvement that's going to be more than maybe, half a second, a couple of milliseconds. Half a second would be amazing, but I just think that's something that's going to be quite difficult in the way that Elementor is currently structured. So, but if anybody's actually doing it, please make sure you've got backups in place and everything else. Let's have a look. Andy, I'm going to take a look at what you're saying. Love Elementor and update across several sites, but as soon as there's a new release, several functions stop working. Therefore, relentless updating, more so as I run a lot of add-ons. The thing is, I don't imagine there's hardly any site out there that's built with WordPress, whether you're using Elementor or not, that doesn't have a ton of plugins and add-ons installed into it. It's the nature of WordPress. That is, as I said in a different video or a live stream, that's the blessing and the curse of WordPress. The open architecture means that you can shove anything you want into WordPress. And the downside is you can shove anything you want into WordPress. You just never really know what the heck they're going to do and if they're going to work together. And I think, it's just the way that WordPress is. And when you get the sort of flippant comments about, oh, you should do a staging site, or you should do this, or you should do that, and the sort of the usual routine of disable all your plugins and change your theme, that's incredibly time consuming. And when you're doing this for a business, it's time is money, and that's hard to sort of suck up that cost with one site, let alone 10, 20, 30, 40, those kinds of things. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, so Volker, I'm going to come back to your question because you've been waiting patiently for me to do this. What are people's experiences with Blocksy and Elementor? I can only give you brief experiences from the designs that I'm currently working on, and that is, it works well. I don't know to what extent you're talking about or looking at to use Elementor and Blocksy. I think if you were using free tools, Elementor free and Blocksy free would give you a really solid platform, because you could leverage the power of Blocksy's headers and footers and some of the extra features you've got built into Blocksy, and the ease of use of using Elementor to build out the pages where necessary. However, unless you have a really complex design, and as much as this is going to pay me to say this, and I think you probably know what I'm going to say, I think in some instances you would be better to use a theme like Blocksy and leverage the power that that has, and then use something like Gutenberg with some good quality blocks to build out the design. Because I think the combination of using those two, what I've tested things out on the last tutorial I did, that was impressive. I mean, you were talking a 1 second WooCommerce site. So that had WooCommerce installed in it with none of the optimizations being done for, disabling all the stuff that WooCommerce runs on every single page, whether you've got WooCommerce content or not. That was quite a lot of images, not a complex layout, but there was still big hero image, and all the rest of the design was all done through images. And to have a 1 second load time on that with no optimization really being done other than just switching SG Optimizer on, that's pretty impressive. So my personal experience is, if you were looking to work with a theme, Blocksy is the way that I would go right now. I love the theme. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Sergio, the developer, and I think it's Andy or Andre, who is one of the other guys that's involved in it. I think they're doing a great job. They just need to be shouting it a little louder, because I think a lot of people need to really realize this is a bloody good theme. So hopefully that answered the question anyway, Volker. And if anybody else wants to come back and answer Volker's question, feel free to do so in the chat. Okay. What else do we have here? Okay. Yeah, go on then, Rich. We'll double dare you to install Elementor 3.1 on a live site without a backup. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And if you do that, you're a crazy man. Okay, so I am going to remember tonight to press one button that I always forget every single time. So now we are coming up to about 7 o'clock, so we're going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes, and we're going to do this. Yes, I'm going to do some questions and answers. So I know that this will make a certain person very happy. I'm looking at you, Carl. So if you've got questions for me, please pop those into the chat so I'll take a look, and I'll answer as many as I can, within reason for the time that we've got. But I hope you found these topics useful and interesting, because I like to use these live streams as more where we can talk about the business side of things, the questions you've got about business, the various different nuances of running a freelance or a small company, maybe even a small agency. There's lots and lots and lots of little things to take into account, and I think if we can have a conversation about those, I think the live stream is a great place to do that, because we can get that interaction together where I can answer questions, you can throw them out, you get answers and stuff in the chat as well. So if you enjoyed that, let me know, give it a thumbs up, hit the little thumbs up on this video just to say you enjoyed that type of content, so please do. Okay, LSTech, let's have a little look. So this is going back to about Elementor 3.1 and one of the experimental features, which is the speed performance is under experimental too, so you have to switch that on. Excuse me. You do have to enable that. I think it's to do with the DOM model that's being used and some other things. So if you do have a site where you're happy to install Elementor 3.1, a test site, testing environment, try it and see what you think. Does it make a difference? Try benchmarking your site beforehand, enable those options, and benchmark it afterwards, and come back with what kind of figures you're getting. And if you're watching this video on the replay, let me know in the comment section, if you do get to do those tests, how much difference you saw speed-wise between the 3.1 without the experimental option on and 3.1 with the experimental option on. Did you see any noticeable speed increases, decreases, any optimization improvements there whatsoever? Let me know, because that would be quite cool to know about it. So yeah, come on everybody, make sure you hit that thumbs up button on this video. It's nice to get a couple of thumbs up on a live stream. And then when you do, I'll give you a little round of applause. Okay, so what else do we have? Yeah, so Andy, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put your comment up a second. So this is kind of going back to what we were talking about, having lots of sites running backups, running sort of staging sites and so on. It's a small pain. I don't know. I find the whole dealing with staging sites for a lot of sites is just incredibly time consuming to deal with. So how many of you actually use staging sites before you actually run an update? Or do you work more in a case of, well, I would rather do a backup prior to running an update, and if it hits the fan, I can roll it back very quickly. Because I've got to be brutally honest, unless it's a really, really mission critical site, that's kind of how I've worked the most part of the time. It just isn't time-wise reasonable to take 80 plus sites and put them all into staging sites to run tests every time there's an update, a major update, or even a minor update to one of the key components, or in reality, any plugin you run on a site. But speaking of that, if you are a WP Vivid Backup Pro user, which I am, and if you're not, check it out. There's an option in there in the Pro version which allows you to automatically back up whenever you run an update. So let's just say you want to update Elementor. You set this up to switch it on basically and just tell it you want to do it, and then when you click to update Elementor, it will back up the plugin states and only the plugin state, and it'll back that up to either the server, or if you want to do it remotely, which I would also recommend, send it remotely. And that way, if that plugin goes sort of like, to the wall, you can just reinstate the plugin back to its old initial state through WP Vivid Backup Pro. So that's one way of doing it. And also, like I say, running backups of the entire site beforehand. To me, while it's not the perfect scenario, in a business point of view, it's probably the only real way, unless you've got multiple people working for you and you've got some people that have, their sole job is to deal with running maintenance and backups and updates and securities and all those kinds of things. You can't just walk away from the things that are making you money and concentrate a couple of days updating and staging sites and doing all those kinds of things when an update rolls out. But how do you do it? You tell me, what are your ways of dealing with this when you have more than just a small handful of sites? Because I'd love to know. Let's have a look. What else do we have? Just updated right on a test domain. Build it with a website with Elementor. And how did it go? Did it go okay? Did you find any problems doing that? Did it run smoothly? Let me know. And the other thing to ask is, when you run an update, how much do you test afterwards? What do? Do you just quickly flick through a couple of pages just to check everything's okay? Log in, log out, those kinds of things? Or do you do a full test on the site to make sure that all of the site is up and running in exactly the way it should do, including contact forms and all those kinds of things? Because all these things are things you realistically should be doing if you want to be fully, in control of exactly what's happening and fully checking after you've made these updates. And like I say, I think from a financial point of view, that's going to be very, very difficult to do. So, okay, so Pablo, I'm going to ask you a question. Listen, what are your best recommendations and lessons after so many years on YouTube? Recommendations and lessons in regards to what, Pablo? Let me know in the chat section, and I'll see if I can answer that, because I'm not quite sure what you're looking for. So I do apologise. Okay. Now I'm quite a ways behind the comments on you, so do excuse me as I go through. Let's have a little look. Wow, so many comments. Super sticker. Thank you very much, Carl, for your super sticker. That's very nice of you. Peer character stretching his arm forward. I have no idea what the heck that's even all about. But it's probably something to do with the Ecamm Live software that I'm using, which is doing little things when someone does a super chat. So thank you very much. Okay. Charlie Bird. Personally, I'm finding it hard most of the time to get creative focus. I hope all are doing okay out there. Thanks, Paul, for all the hard work you do. My pleasure. And I do agree, it is hard to bloody focus at times. You do need to one of the things, I don't know, this is sidetracking a little bit. One of the things that I would suggest is whatever environment you work in, make it as clean as possible. I'm one of those people that if I've got junk on my desk, and believe me, this live stream kills me right now. If I've got junk on my desk, it makes it really difficult for me to focus because they kind of just grab my attention. So if you're struggling finding that focus, clear your desk off. Make wherever you work as clean and as minimal as possible, just to help you focus your mind. And find some good resources for inspiration. Like, you know, there's always things like Dribble and stuff like that, and Behance. They're great places. But if you use Instagram, there's lots and lots of accounts you can follow on there that are like UI and UX designs and things, and like Elementor designs and different kinds of things. And I follow probably like 3 or 4 of those, and they post in probably a couple of times a day. But the number of times I'm on a little flick through my phone, I think, oh, I like the look of that way they done that sort of hero image or something. I'll screen grab it and just save it to my phone. And then if you use something like Notion, you can send it from your phone to Notion, and you could just organize all those into like an inspiration mood board. And then when you're kind of looking for some inspiration, you know, organize them if you want to, or just dump them all into one big, huge sort of mood board of you know, extremeness. And then when you're kind of stuck for inspiration, you can go and take a look at there, because they obviously did something to make you go, oh, I like the look of that. So they piqued your interest. Go back and use those kind of things. You know, set up a Pinterest board if you want to, make it private, make it public, whatever. But when you see something that inspires you, screen grab it, save it, bookmark it, whatever it is. Those are the little things that can help you break through the difficulty of design. You know, design, you can't be creative all the time. You know, there's days where I really struggle coming up with an idea for a video. There's days where I struggle even recording a video. Days I struggle coming up with an idea for a client site. Months where I come up with a struggle for ideas to create my own sites. You're not alone in this kind of thing. And I think, you know, when you have those blocks, have resources to call upon. Go onto the WP Crew Facebook group. Link there. And just say, I'm really struggling with ideas today, guys. Chuck some ideas at me. Some sites you built, some sites you really think look great. Just chuck those ideas at me and let me just absorb some of those design ideas and experience what they're doing and see what piques your interest. So Charlie, when you feel like that, do some of those things. You know, don't feel like you're isolated and alone, because everybody that's creative in any aspect, whether that's YouTube, whether that's, you know, gaming, whether that's artists, whether it's web designers, branding, all those kind of things, everybody struggles. Just some people find ways of helping them break through those struggles. So that's my answer to some of those things. So hopefully that will be good. Andy Woolley, thank you very much for your super chat. Thank you very much. You're a gentleman. Okay, let's have a little look. Richard, let's answer that question. I assume you have more Crockablock content coming as they are sponsored tonight. Yes, next week. There'll be new content coming next week, and some new content for dynamic content for Elementor should be coming either tomorrow maybe, or the beginning of the week. So yes, there's new content coming. Okay. Yeah, back up. I think that's definitely, and else, yeah, you and I both know that WP Reset is probably one of our favorite tools. So if you don't have WP Reset, check that out. Very, very useful to have. Take snapshots. Just be careful with it, because it does, every time you take a snapshot with WP Reset, it does create another duplicate of your entire database, which is fine on small sites, but if you have a big site, that can get very big very quick. You can go in and delete them, but just bear that in mind, that you can really quickly get a massive database if you run those a lot. Okay, let me just go through. Staging is the way to go. You are absolutely right. In certain examples, like I say, staging is fine when you have a handful of sites, but when you have lots of sites, I just don't think it's a viable way of doing it. It's the optimal way of doing it, and I wouldn't dissuade anybody from doing it if you have the time and the resources to do it. But when you don't, you have to go down the route of, how can I do this as quick as possible with little disruption as possible? And if things go wrong, how can I get a site back online as quick as possible? Staging is not always the quickest way of doing that side of things. So, you know, But I always like to see exactly what you guys are thinking and how you would approach this side of things. This is all about the conversation, which is great. Michael M. Updraft has this too with one click. Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools out there that do this kind of thing. Updraft, I've heard a few things lately about Updraft not being so great, so it's kind of like put me off what they do. Not that I use them anyway, but yeah, there's great resources, like I say, WP Vivid Backup Pro, Updraft Plus. You can use WP Reset to a certain extent. You can have that linked through to main WP, which when you update something inside main WP, it'll trigger WP Reset to take a snapshot before any updates are carried out. So there's ways you can link these different things together, which is cool. Okay, so I'm going to quickly flick through. Yeah, you are right on that one. I did contact them and asked them if they were going to do this, and they said that yes, they are looking at doing it, but so far I haven't heard any more than that. But it is one of those things that it would be nice if it could trigger it. I mean, it might be worthwhile taking a look at something like Zapier and see if there's a way of actually linking Zapier to use that to kind of create the link between main WP and WP Vivid Backup to trigger that side of things. Something we might have to take a look at. Okay, to come back to you, Pablo. So, recommendations and lessons on publishing videos and content frequently, being a YouTuber. No, I don't think I have, to be honest. I think I'm just one of those people that how can I say? I enjoy seeing what other people create, and that kind of inspires me to create more things. And I'm a nerd. I'm a real techie nerd. I just enjoy plugins and software and themes and designing things and testing things out, whether that's hardware or software. And I get excited about those things. And one I kind of get excited about, I just want to quickly make a video so I can put that up online and share what I think is something cool. You know, sometimes they are, you know, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have, or I might have taken a bit more time to experiment with certain tools, to maybe see some of the loopholes or the things that weren't so great. You know, you kind of get a bit excited. But unfortunately, that's just me, and I just put videos out there that I think that's a really cool something. And if I really get quite passionate about it, then you'll tend to see there's a lot more videos about it. I mean, Oxygen's a good example of that. I mean, I was never a big fan of Oxygen, even when I did some videos on it in the early days. But going back to it with version 3.6, I think it is 3.5, 3.6, and testing it out, after a few other people have sort of been testing, like Cal Van Dusen over on the admin bar, for example, kind of piqued my interest to go back and take a little look at it. And I'm glad I did, because it opened up my eyes to some of the other things you could do with it, and actually how it is becoming a really solid tool that is worth investigating. You know, people are frustrated. I know people sort of jump in ship and saying like, oh, I'm fed up with Elementor, I'm going to Oxygen, and you know, that's the nature of things. People do that. You get annoyed with one thing, so you look for an alternative. But every solution out there is going to have problems at some point. You know, Oxygen's going to suffer from it. Divi suffered from it. Beaver Builder's probably going to suffer from it. All of them do. It's just the nature. And the more people that go on board, the more potential for problems to be found, the more people will say about the problems they found and so on. So, I don't think I found any real great resources. I just watch certain people on YouTube. Most of them are not even creators to do with web design. I look at something every now and again if I'm just kind of piques my interest about a new feature. Then I think, oh, that's quite cool. But other than that, no, I don't really do. Okay, so what else do we have? How do you get Super Sticker, Steve Pro? I've been trying for 30 minutes, keep failing. No idea, Carl. I do apologise. I have no idea. It should be enabled, but I have no idea. Okay, so let's have a little look. Andy Woody, thank you very much for your super chat. Let me just pull that up a second so I can comment on it. So, YouTube insights such as your channel have helped on 2 sites last year. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. That makes me super happy. I love to know that anything that I sort of put out there, any kind of content I put out on any of the topics, you know, whether they're sort of like beginners, intermediate, and advanced things, if it helps people out, it's doing its job. So thank you very much for that. Thank you. Exactly, Volker. One is never alone in this group, and that's the beauty of the WPTuts group, is that we are all in this together. The good, the bad, the fun, and the crap. Okay, let's have a little look, because I'm shooting down the comments. Right, let's have a look. Please reveal your YouTube earnings. Please, please, please. No. No, I think when it comes to talking about money, I think it's quite a vulgar thing to to start bragging. You see, there's lots and lots of YouTubers. It's become the thing to flex about the new car you bought, about the new house you've got, the new $5 million, I don't know, mansion you've bought, the Ferrari that's outside. If you like that kind of thing, all power to you. For me personally, that's my business, and it will always stay my business. I don't say what I charge for things. I don't say what I earn. It's my business, and it will stay my business. So I do apologize. Nope, that's not something that's going to be on the channel anytime soon. Okay, Carl. My advice would be to focus on quality over quantity regarding video uploads to YouTube. Then market the videos you publish via your blogs and third-party assets. I will say that if you were looking to get into doing YouTube, there's never been a better time, because the gear that you need can be really minimal. You can create amazing content with a phone. But I will say, unless you are creating something that is truly unique, truly life-changing in some way, then it's bloody hard. And to give you an example, when I started doing YouTube, I was doing 3 channels at the same time. And I've said this before in live streams. I was doing 40 hours a week minimum in my business. So that was my web design business and so on. And then I was coming home and working at least 40 hours a week in my spare time on YouTube. And I was probably making a couple of pounds. I think I was excited to make my first £12 in a month. I was blown away by that. So work that out. I could work in McDonald's for minimum wage, and I would earn more than that in 2 hours than I did in 40 hours. So I'll give you some example of what you have to do, unless, like I say, unless you're someone like Mr. Beast or something like that, where you are doing something that's truly unique, that's changing people's lives, that gets a lot of social shares, a lot of hype around it. YouTube is hard. When people say, oh, you know, you're a YouTuber, you're a millionaire and all those kinds of things. If only that was true. I mean, if you were working in Italy and you're working in lira, you could probably be a millionaire quite quickly, because the exchange rate is normally quite good. But you kind of get the idea, hopefully. But yeah, anyway. Let's have a little look. What else do we have? We're going to do a couple more questions, and then we're going to call it an evening. Richard, no problem at all. You dash on, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Now, I've seen something about my live streaming. Let me just have a little look. If I worked at McDonald's, Carl, I don't want to turn the company around, but at least make their bloody burgers the size they look on the adverts. Anyway, let's have a little look. What's this question? Paul. Right, hang on, bear with me. What's your current setup for this feed, hardware-wise? I will be doing a video on this, Sando. I did a video last week, I think it was, which was about my one desk setup. And these are not really the kind of thing that I'm going to put out all the time on the channel, but I get a lot of people asking me what kind of gear do I use for different things, and the live stream is one of those things. So to give you a very, very, very brief overview of the tools that I use, and this is something that has been built up probably over the last 5 or 6 years when it comes to the gear that I actually use. But right now I'm using a Sony A7S III Mark III. Yeah, the newest Sony A7S III with an Atomos Ninja 5-inch screen on top of that, and then I've got that coming out through to a A10 Mini switcher, which is a Blackmagic design switcher. So it allows me to switch between 4 different cameras and different microphones, and I can do fades and different things like that, which then runs into an audio interface, and I've got a boom arm with a pencil microphone, or shotgun microphone, sorry, which is a Bayer dynamic microphone. That's going into an M1 MacBook Air, which also has connected up to it a Stream Deck for me to put up the different things, like switching the screens to put the feeds and stuff like that up on there. I'm using a small HD monitor, which monitors the feed that's coming out of my Blackmagic design. So what I see in front of me at the moment is Ecamm Live, which is basically the software that I use to run the live stream. But the cameras feed through the A10 Mini. So what I'm kind of seeing is I see what YouTube sees in front of me, but I see what my A10 Mini sees to my left-hand side coming through the small HD monitor. And yeah, that's pretty much the setup at the moment, how it's all set up. And like I say, I will do a little video on this to show you how it's all set up. It's one of those things you could spend huge amounts of money, or you could literally have your phone in front of you and a laptop, and that would be perfectly fine to do live streams. I just kind of feel like I like to invest in the technology that I use to make my life easier, so I just literally have buttons to press when I want to change things. So if we want to do a DJ horn, I press a button. If I want to put my Q&A bumper up, I can... You know, just little things like that. I think they make the stream look a little bit better, and hopefully sounds and looks okay. Good evening, Andrew Downey. Good to see you popping in, even if you are at the end of it. Life gets in the way, my man. Okay, so looking forward to the video, Carl. Thanks, Paul. No problem at all. I say, hope that answered the question about the gear that I currently use. Let's have a look. Okay, so is there an easier way to use jQuery or JS in a much easier way? I'm not really sure what you mean there, but if you talk about learning how to code it, then I would say probably use a like CodePen environment where you can experiment without actually having to do it on a live site, and you can see how it all kinds of works. That's probably the easiest way to get your head around it. But I would also question the fact, it depends upon what you're trying to do, whether you would realistically need to know JavaScript, jQuery, you know, JS, whatever it is you want to sort of talk about. They're nice skills to have, but I think if you're basing your business model and what you offer around a tool like WordPress, your requirements for learning those kinds of things are probably less required than if you were coding something or using, you know, your own kind of platform to build something. So, okay. This is true. See, my face does light up. I did say to you that I'm a nerd and I do love technology and gadgets and all those kinds of things. So I do really enjoy things that have lights on and I can press buttons. And if it's got a blue light on it, I'm sold. I'll buy it all day long. Okay. What else do we have? Charlie. How much time should I spend on GT metrics? Oh, this is one of those things that I think people become incredibly obsessed by these numbers. There's so many things to take into consideration when you run a site through something like GT metrics. You have to take it as a benchmark. It's not the ultimate goal because you've got so many things to take into consideration. If you have a server in the UK and your market is in the UK and you test it all set up for the UK, you'll get one set of scores. However, if your server's in the UK and your market's in America and you run it, they're going to see the site taking longer to load because your server is in the UK and they're requesting it in the US. So this is where tools like GT metrics can be useful for finding problems, but when you obsess about them, I think you drive yourself up the wall. You've got to look at the user experience. And I think you also need to do, you know, GT metrics, ping them, and also take a look at, you know, Google Page Insights and Page Speed score thing, whatever it's called. Because I think these in combination should allow you to see where you have problems and tweak accordingly. But it's been brought up several times in different conversations and different things like that. Take a look at some of the biggest sites out there and take a look at how they rank on GT metrics, Pingdom, and, you know, Google Page Speed score thing. It's an eye-opener, but just don't get obsessed by it. Use them as a guide, use them as something to help, use them to pinpoint issues, faults, areas that you can rectify and remedy, and then get on with your day. Don't obsess. So hopefully that answers that question anyway. Yeah, exactly. I think Carl, you just echoed my sentiment. Use it as a guide, not a blueprint. Good way of looking at it. Let's have a look. Okay, Eaglefish Media, thoughts on WordPress as a home for a social media platform with large traffic and user numbers. Any drawbacks or concerns? Don't do it. The problem that I see when it comes to so many things that can be done with WordPress, and I don't mean something you can kind of bolt on that runs in sort of conjunction with WordPress. I mean, you can get things like Peer Board is something that I'm looking at possibly getting, which is like a forum message board kind of thing that you can embed into WordPress, but it runs on the Peer Board servers. So it's independent, it just integrates with WordPress. Something like that I think is fine. To run an entire social media platform on top of WordPress, I personally wouldn't do it. I would look at a platform that's dedicated to being a social media platform in its own right, and then use that software, because WordPress is not meant. It was never built to be a sort of a social media platform. I mean, it was built as a blogging kind of platform. We've already, modified what you can do with WordPress to, crazy levels. And I think sometimes you just need to look at what am I trying to achieve and look for a solution that does just that. And then you can link it through if you want to. I mean, there's ways in which you can share, logins and accounts and things like that. There's lots of different ways you can do it. But personally, I wouldn't use WordPress as the hub for a social media platform. Hope that answered the question. Let's have a little look. P-ball is almost gone. I know else it goes in about 17 hours, something like that. So I'm like, do I get it? I'll probably get it. WordPress is a beast, but social media is basic. I'm not really sure where you're going with that, but okay. Appreciate, thank you. Been looking at Buddy Boss with the new app. Am I right in saying that is Buddy Boss still plugging in to WordPress, or does it not have it as a standalone kind of product that links to WordPress? I could be wrong on that one. I did look at it a couple of days ago, but not with any real conviction. But yeah, let me know. Let's have a little look. We're going to do 2 more questions, and then I think we're going to call it a day, because as always, my 1 hour live stream is already an hour and a half long, and Carl will be shouting at me. Okay, so I'm going to answer. I'm going to try to say this again. IT Tikeka. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize. What tutorials do you use? What tutorials? Oh, God. There's no gin in this, I promise. What software do you use to record your tutorials? I use QuickTime Player and Camtasia. I've got Camtasia. I don't really like the recording part of Camtasia because I find that it very quickly goes out of sync, the audio and the video, when you're recording longer than maybe a couple of minutes. So what I use to record the actual screen capture is a piece of software called Movavi Screen Capture. Cheap as chips. It's always on offer. I think you can pick it up for like about £29, probably $35, something like that. They did used to have it, which was it was a suite. So it came with the screen recorder and the editor, which was basically a kind of rip-off of Camtasia and did the same kind of thing. But what I do now is I use Movavi Screen Capture to do the screen capture recording because it's more reliable. Unless I'm doing picture-in-picture where I've got, the little video of me in the corner, at which point I'll tend to use Camtasia because they run as separate streams. And then I'll use Camtasia Studio to do the editing of the screen capture. And then I'm using either Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro now to do the actual putting everything together alongside the to-camera pieces that I shoot in any B-roll that I might do and things like that, and any sort of animated segments that I use. And that's either in After Effects or, again, it's in Final Cut Pro, which is kind of what I'm trying to transition to just because it's quicker to work with, but it's just getting to learn those tools. So that's what my workflow is basically for doing the video tutorials. Hope that helps. Need to go back on the Brewdog. That water isn't good for you. No, I know. Tell me about it. It's not my throat. I didn't used to get such a sore throat as well when I was drinking the Brewdog. 2 more months time and I'll be back on the Brewdog. Yeah, Elstech, that's one of the reasons why I didn't spend too much time looking at Buddy Boss. It was very expensive and an annual renewal. Quite expensive for what you're getting. Okay. Yes, they're still on WP, but launched a new app to address a lot of the old concerns with speed, etc. But from what I see, it draws a lot of functionality and extras from the base WP site. Excuse me. I think I used Buddy Boss probably, say 5 or 6 years ago when I was looking for how to integrate a kind of like a forum-y kind of platform into WordPress and that. I would just, personally, I would say, try to keep the two separate if you can, unless, like I say, you just have to go down the route of having everything integrated, then maybe Buddy Boss is the right option. I honestly don't know. I've never really used it to sort of be able to answer that question. Okay. Let's have a little look. Elementor payment form. I'm pretty sure you can use the new Crocoblock form plugin, which is free. I'm pretty sure that's got payment options in it. Don't quote me, but I think it has. Pretty sure it links up with Stripe and maybe PayPal. Have a look at that anyway. I did a video on it a couple of days ago. It's my first impression on it. But there's a ton of options in it, totally free. And like I say, there's a couple more new things that are coming out in the pipeline from Crocoblock that should help make working with that even better. Good evening, Hossein. I hope I said that right. I love the avatar. That's awesome. Carl, I know. Give me 2 minutes and we will be wrapping up. Okay, best way to display a portfolio of your work, projects, JPEGs, anything. Either Jet Engine or Advanced Custom Fields or one of those dynamic content tools. Build it with that. You can put whatever you want into it then and link that through to, don't know what your page builder of choice is, but you could link it through. If you're using Jet Engine, you could use Gutenberg or you could use Elementor. If you're using Beaver Builder, you could use Beaver Builder to do it. Divi, you can do it. Elementor Pro on its own, you can do it. I would personally build it from scratch using those kinds of tools because it gives you so much more flexibility to put whatever metadata, whatever content, whatever structure you want to put into it. That's how I would go about doing it. Okay. Okay, so let's have one more question, one more thing. I'm going to quickly scan through and find something. And then we're going to call it a night because it's getting on. So, I'm not too sure what... thank you very much, Carl. Another super chat. You're a gentleman. You don't need to keep doing this. Okay, I'm not going to go through tons and tons of questions on there. I'm going to leave this as it is. But what I want to say is, this is where we're going to draw a line under tonight's live stream. 2 weeks' time, we'll be back online again. So that's myself and Carl and Els, because Els is always here and Els is awesome. So before we wrap it up, can everybody say a big thank you very much to Carl Garside and to Els Tech for their help and support in the chat and over on the forum, and just being all-round awesome people. And I want to say thank you very much to everybody that's joined in tonight because you've been great. I love doing these live streams. I love getting this conversation going. I'm looking forward to doing one in 2 weeks' time. If you're watching on the replay, let me know in the chat section or the comment section below that you're catching up on the replay and answer any of the questions we've discussed tonight. Stay safe wherever you are. Stay happy. Be careful. And I will see you all in 2 weeks' time.